Yay, keyword crypto. Clapping.
Right.
Beginning of the show with Mike in space. Thanks for coming back on the show, Mike.
Hey, not a problem. How are you guys doing? Are you guys staying safe?
More or less.
Yeah. I mean, I never leave the house anyway, so it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
How's things up in Canada?
Well, yeah, I've been working at home for the last 3 weeks, and I've never done that before, so it's a bit of a change of pace, and I've got the kids at home and the wife, so it's hard to get a little bit of peace and quiet at times. Kids are bouncing off the walls. They don't want to stay inside all day, but got to do what you got to do. The parks are closed off.
Is it at the point where the exciting part of working from home is gone, or was that ever there?
Some aspects of it are kind of nice. I like having, natural light rather than sitting in like a windowless cubicle. So that's always nice. But yeah, it takes a bit more discipline to work from home, as you can imagine.
Do you have a backyard?
We do. But that's fun for a bit. But yeah, the kids want to get out more. They want to go to the park, but the playgrounds are all taped off. Can't even do that anymore.
Yeah, you don't want to touch the playgrounds. Yeah. I mean, gross teenagers that are rubbing their hands all over each other, getting their coronavirus on everything. I guess we got to be grateful that when you have work that you can do from home, that's a good thing. So,
yeah, definitely fortunate in that regard. I think I'm not sure about the American numbers, but in Canada there was something like 1 million requests for unemployment.
It's 10 million.
Nothing, dude.
Yeah, something like that.
It's
well, yeah,
10 million.
That makes sense because you're about 10x the population. So yeah, per
That's
capita,
true.
it's about the same. Yeah, insane. Yeah.
When I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a catastrophe right there. That is, whoa.
And that's nothing. We're going to probably hit like 25% unemployment.
I wonder. I've been thinking I'm going to take out a small business loan, like a disaster relief loan from the government, because why not? Everybody's doing it. You have to do it, I guess.
Right.
But I don't know how. It seems like a stimulus is something that would help, after we deal with the crisis.
So you're going to take out that loan and you're going to invest it all in Bitcoin, right?
Why would you take out a loan that you have to pay back?
Because it's a low interest loan. It's a low interest loan because you won't have to pay back for 30 years, and but
with unemployment you wouldn't have to pay back any of it.
Well, right now I still kind of have a job, so I can't get unemployment. But yeah, no, and technically I think it's something like I have to fire myself from my own business. There are some loopholes that I got to do, but if you own a business at all, it makes sense to take out a loan. And the weird thing is I feel like such a hypocrite taking part in this kind of shitty system of, dumping money into the economy to stimulate things. And no matter how you cut it, however you define money printing or quantitative easing or a stimulus, it's really, we don't know what $6 trillion or whatever is going to do to
we do. We know exactly what it's going to do. We did it in 1935. We did 10%. We did, what was it? It was 10% of GDP. No, 25%
Past performance
of GDP.
Is not indicative of future results. That's what
it absolutely is. It's. We know exactly what's going to happen. The country isn't going to collapse. We're just going to keep dumping money in, and then once we get back to work, we go back to work.
I don't know. Once people start burning shit, I'll bet you $6 trillion that we're going to. Well, actually, you were the person who said that we were going to have a depression. So, maybe that's you saying, yeah, we do know what's going to happen. We're going to go through a Great Depression.
Well, I don't think we're going to go through a Great Depression because of this. I think this is very easy to fix. You just send people money and let them buy stuff and pay their rent until the coronavirus goes away, and then the economy just gets back to normal, like normal. The thing is, if you deny people money, then and they start to become homeless and they can't pay their bills and they start declare bankruptcy, they lose their houses. That's when things fall apart. If you just give people money until the catastrophe is over, literally once you say, okay, everybody can go back to work, everybody has their house, everybody's been paying their bills, everybody has, is still in their apartment. Like nothing really happened. And so people can the economy just picks up right where it
Aren't you
stopped.
looking at that a little bit in a bubble though? Like it's one thing to say, yeah, we can put a hold on rent, but and again, you look at the landlord. The landlord's got a mortgage. He owes that money, and there's a whole, it's a domino effect.
No, I'm not saying a rent freeze. I'm saying you pay people
right
out of the tax coffers, and then they pay the rent, and the landlord pays the mortgage, and the banks pay the whatever. And it just every study has shown that for every dollar we put into welfare, you get like $1.15 back in taxes. Because people on welfare pay 100% of the money they get into they put it directly back into the economy, and every single process is getting taxed. So they're not going around and putting it into savings. They're not putting it into bonds. They're not putting it overseas. They're putting 100% of the money directly back into the economy. Now, that's why it's so much better to give poor people money than it is to give rich people money, because rich people actually save it. They don't really need to spend it.
Now, how long can that realistically go on for? Like, if this thing lasts, I've heard some predictions that it could go on for 2 years.
No, that's what my question is like, since we don't know, we're talking about two different catastrophes. We're talking about the unemployment catastrophe, and then there's the thing that is keeping us from working right now. And that's why I think like a stimulus would make more sense once we have just dealt with the health issue, or until people can go back to work, or we figure out new ways that people can work or whatever. Because right now, this could be 18 months. It could be 2 years.
See.
I mean, if we get a virus
but this
mutation,
isn't stimulus. We're not trying to stimulate the economy. We're trying to stop it from collapsing. There's a big difference. So a stimulus is when you're like in a recession and the economy starting to collapse. You want to stimulate the economy. Mm-hmm. This is literally like giving someone a crutch before they fall down. Versus a stimulus is you let them fall down and you say, okay, here's a crutch and I'll help you slowly get back up, and then use the crutch to walk on.
Isn't it called a stimulus package? I don't know. It seems like
even the senators were like, it's not, even McConnell, who I fucking hate, was like, yeah, it's technically not even really a stimulus because like it's more of just like
here's a couple trillion
it's like a
dollars.
stopgap. I mean,
we'll see.
At the end of the day, it's like I said, it's we haven't even hit 25% of GDP yet, and that's what we did in the Great Depression, and look how that turned out. So, I mean, my fear is we knew the recession was coming. We knew last year because the fundamentals of our economy are not good, and that was always my fear. It was like if something happened, we're going to see just how bad the economy is. We're going to see that like all these people without health care. Oh shit! All these people who can't pay rent or are paying 60% of their income on rent. Oh shit! Unemployment's not even going to cover their rent in California, New York. So like, what do you do then? So they have to increase the price of unemployment. And it's just like they're starting to see immediately all the places that are like this like massive defaults in our country. So whatever.
Well, it'll be a wild ride. So I'll put all the loan money into Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The halvening's coming up, so you can't go wrong there.
Yeah. 70,000, right? We're going straight to 70,000.
Yeah, well,
stock to flow. Yeah,
stock to flow. Safe haven asset is right now. Bitcoin is our back door. So it's funny because, like, I think we mentioned this last week on the show. It's like most Bitcoiners over the last few years have been kind of thinking that an economic collapse. That's what Bitcoin is made for. It was born out of an economic collapse. It's been waiting for the next one.
Yeah.
But it's funny to see. Well, it's not funny. It's kind of sad to see how like that has not happened yet. Maybe it's because we don't have a burning need to use it yet. Because I don't know. What do you think is going to happen with that? Are we going to need to use Bitcoin? Is it going to work well enough for us to use it when we need it? Are we going to be using Nano?
Well, what is use, right? This, some will say hodling is use, right? So if you have an economic downturn, you have this thing of value that you're holding on to. But we haven't really, it hasn't really acted in that capacity. I mean, it's moving up and down with the stock market. I think the narrative has kind of exploded a little bit.
Just the narrative doesn't make sense.
It's moving. It's moving with the stock market. Yeah, I guess it has moved with the stock market.
The funny
but that doesn't
thing
mean
is,
it's going to continue to do that.
The funny thing is, though, I think in the last few weeks, it's been normally Bitcoin is obviously more volatile than the stock market, but in the last few weeks, the stock market has been more volatile than Bitcoin. It's done, it's gone down, but it's still kind of hanging in there when you look at the S&P and everything else collapsing around it.
Well, Bitcoin did drop like 45% in a day, so that's still pretty volatile.
I mean, stock market dropped like 25% in it, 33% in a day or in 2 weeks or a week, something like that. I mean,
well, another thing, like we still have not seen Bitcoin shine. We haven't seen its moment to shine yet.
Right.
Bitcoin, and this is like, we've been talking about this for a while, but Bitcoin was born out of an economic collapse and has only known a rising economy, a rising stock market, really. Like you say, it's been pretty much in sync with the stock market, and that's true because we've seen it go from, nothing to $20,000, and it's only existed in a bull market, really.
Yeah.
And so if it's going to do anything, now is the time, basically. If something is if people are going to realize its value.
Well, according to the talking heads, it's always the next catastrophe, the one around the corner. It's never this one. And it's like, well, if it's not, I mean, you don't have a greater confluence of events than right now. I mean, this is like a once in a century situation. There's nothing, it's completely unprecedented. It feels surreal in a lot of ways.
Totally surreal.
So, I mean, if it can't perform in this environment, I'm not sure what we're waiting for.
Are there talking heads that say, "Oh, it's not this economic collapse; it's the next one"? Really?
That's what I see constantly on crypto Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's the 2049 collapse when we go to World War V or whatever.
We have to wait till the aliens invade. Once the aliens invade, Bitcoin will show just how strong it is.
Yeah, I mean, even if our money becomes valueless right now, I don't see a lot of people trusting in Bitcoin.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean,
and if everybody's poor, why would you put your money in I mean, I can understand I can understand from like a Venezuela standpoint or in a Zimbabwe standpoint. If you're watching your money devalue compared to the rest of the planet, and you don't have the ability to put it into the U.S. currency, and someone says, well, this is not as stable as U.S. currency, but you can actually get into it, and they show me Bitcoin. Okay, yeah, sure. But I don't know. I mean,
if it looks like if your government currency isn't going to be worth much in the future, and you might want to believe that if the government has to give out money in order to.
I mean, I would still just put it in Tether.
Well, that's the thing. Here's what happened.
Value worthless too.
They printed 6 trillion, money printer go brr, and it rose against all the other currencies. Yeah. So in Venezuela or wherever else, they want dollars. They don't want Bitcoin, right? Yeah. So
how many times can you do that? How many times can you money printer go burr?
I don't know.
Before it's
we've been doing it for 40 years.
What is it? 23 trillion? Is that the debt?
Those Fed guys are pretty smart, aren't they? They've got this figured out. Like they know how to manipulate the world. That's what it is. It's just a bunch of spoofing. It's spoofing.
I mean, because all the money is zeros and ones anyway. So it's like this idea that we owe somebody something that we printed or that somebody just printed that's based off of nothing. Do we really owe people $23 trillion? Because if it's based on gold, that actually means something. But if it's based on just printing money,
is it bonds? Bonds that have been sold. People are holding these bonds, I would assume, right? So
T-bonds, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, and those are held by Americans for the most part. Mm-hmm. So I guess you technically don't have to pay it back, but the country would suffer as a result because it's mainly held by Americans. Those are their savings.
and they try and
Yeah.
they do everything they can not to teach you anything about that in school.
Yeah.
Economics 101. Yeah, right.
So we joked around on Twitter saying that you should interview us this time because you brought a lot of questions to the table before we started recording. So
we've already gone over 2 of them.
Yeah, why don't you get to
sure.
it? Why don't you get to it,
Let's
Mike?
get into
Ask
it.
away.
So here's the funny thing. So I know you guys are a bit left leaning, I would imagine. So am I in real life. But I'll go on crypto Twitter, and you're arguing with these like gun nuts and these libertarians, and then I'll get into an argument with Michael, and then suddenly I'm like MAGA, just because it's all relative. You know what I mean? Like I'm from Canada.
Yeah, it happens to me too.
Mostly, and it's just like, whoa, wait a sec, how did this flip around? I'm the conservative now. Yeah. So yeah, on that point, we were having an argument a little earlier about the confusing guidance coming out of the WHO and the CDC. Don't wear masks, wear masks, and Michael took one side, and I from what I've read, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything, but it does sound like the WHO is pretty well bought by the CPC, right? They installed Tedros, the government, not the people. I need to make that clear. And it just, I don't know. You had your take on it that it's, they're just, well, what is your take on that?
So I didn't have a take on it. I was just responding to you asking for information.
Where's my hard data? You kept asking for hard data. Like, what am I, a statistician here with my hard data?
Just a link. I really wanted you to show me what you read that gave you that impression.
I read headlines and then I tweet out things.
I read tweets and headlines.
I have plenty of headlines I can send you. Yeah. Okay.
So that was kind of funny. I don't know.
The info is super misleading. I mean, there's no question about that. And I think
I disagree.
I think it's straight up lying.
I completely disagree.
I
totally disagree.
I
don't think so at all. I think that there has never been a situation in the Western world, quote unquote Western world, where we needed to have everybody wear masks to stop an epidemic in the last 60 years. So we had H1N1, we had a little bit of SARS over here, we had
the one in the 50s.
Okay, so one in the 50s, we had an outbreak of smallpox in the 60s, I think, before we got eradicated, something like that. I'm trying to think what else. But there's never been like a nationwide blanket, you need to wear masks. And we've come out and we've actually had, pretty solid numbers across the board. So if I'm in WHO, I'm kind of going by SARS, I'm going by H1N1, I'm going by the general flu of if you think you're infected, wear a mask. If you're feeling symptoms, wear a mask. If you're working with somebody who's sick, wear a mask. Like just the basic common sense stuff that we've been doing for the last 50 years.
The problem with that is, like, first of all, you look at countries like South Korea, it's more of a mask culture there, and they have lower, they've flattened the curve to a greater degree than
China's
we have.
a massive mask country, and they did not flatten the curve.
Okay.
And they all wore masks.
Yeah, but they got other problems.
But the way I look, here's the way I look at it. Even if a mask does next to nothing, how can wearing a mask be worse than not wearing a mask?
And it's not that. If you have to take two things into consideration. I didn't interrupt, but sorry. So anybody who's listening and thinks I'm interrupting Mike, it's because we've had this we had this fight like 5 times on Twitter. So I already know what he's going to ask. So I should let you ask. So why don't you ask the question so the listeners actually know what you're going to ask?
Well, okay. So this is the way I look at it. I mean, it's clear they're telling a noble lie, right? They want to ensure that hoarding doesn't take place and there's enough for healthcare workers, and that's fine. But I that's not what I would expect from the WHO. That's not really their role to lie to me for the greater good, quote unquote. I look
I
to
mean, they
them
even
for
have a song called "Won't Get Fooled Again." Come on.
exactly. No, but so if they would talk to us like adults, and if they would talk to us like adults and say, "Look, masks do help, but we really need to direct the N95s to the frontline healthcare workers. That's what we need to do. But you can make your own at home." You know, they could have said that from day one, but instead they didn't. More people probably got sick, requiring more frontline healthcare workers to deal with this mess. And then just the other day they came, did you see that ridiculous tweet, the CDC, the original one saying, masks do not work. Do not buy any masks. And then the head of the CDC is like showing you how to make a homemade mask.
Yeah.
It's just like,
that was the Surgeon General.
I didn't.
Surgeon General.
see that.
Exactly.
In his uniform. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so that's Surgeon General. That's completely different than CDC or WHO.
But
So
okay,
but still,
I definitely want to. No, I want to get that straight.
They're all deferring to the
WHO
WHO.
does not work for the U.S.
Even the Canadian officials, they're always, all their recommendations are based on the WHO recommendation. So it does, it has heavy weight.
So let me jump in really
really
fast.
badly.
Let me jump in really fast. So the thing I was pushing back against Mike on Twitter is that at no point did WHO say masks are ineffective, don't wear masks. They specifically said wear masks if you're sick or you're dealing with somebody who's sick.
How do you know if
and
you're
if you're
sick,
not
though?
sick,
How do you know if
hold
you're
on,
sick?
let me finish.
Yeah.
But let me finish. This is what they originally said before we had more information. This is what they said like a month and a half ago, before we had all this information. They said, don't wear a mask unless you're presenting symptoms or you're working with somebody who's presenting symptoms. Self-isolate and wash your hands if you're not in those situations. And my logic is, my understanding is, at that moment, that was the best information that they had. And even as Twitter people, we hear about stuff ahead of time.
So my take on
we get
it,
the information really early, and so from my standpoint, that wasn't bad information. They weren't saying masks don't work. At no point did they say masks don't work. At no point did they say don't wear a mask.
But they weren't being clear.
They
about
said
it.
if you're sick or you're working with somebody sick.
They could have been a lot
And they even
clearer.
said, "Look, we've got people hoarding all this stuff. We need masks right now. All the hospitals are underfunded. If you don't need to wear a mask, if you're not sick or you're not working with somebody sick, please don't wear a mask." That's more or less what they were saying. Self-isolate, wash your hands.
It could have been clearer, is what I'm saying. I think
could have been.
Yeah, go ahead.
It could have been a lot clearer. And the problem with not being very clear about that is you get so many other people, whether it's fake news or even doctors, like the guy on Joe Rogan who was saying, actually, you can get more sick by wearing a mask because you end up touching your face more or whatever. It's like,
but that's actually true. That's 100% true. If you get the virus on your mask and you don't have it on your face properly, or if you take it off properly, you can self-infect.
Well, sure,
you
but
can infect yourself.
So, but does that mean that the WHO, this is all stuff that people should know? What I think is crazy, and this is probably the truth of it, is that people are too dumb to understand this, so you have to lie to them or something. I mean, I just feel like if you tell people that masks can help, then people are going to hoard the masks. So you have to basically
my thing is
around.
They got hoarded anyways. You can't find them anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we have California, a state that has no masks, just like any other state in the United States, and we've somehow been able to more or less kind of flatten the curve in our state. Like, it's not we had that influx. And so far, we've seemed to be handling it pretty well. People are actually surprised at how well California is handling it without masks. So, that's what I'm saying is we have no consistent information. Like Mike's saying, well, South Korea had masks. Well, so did China. China's the one that makes them, and they stopped exporting them. So they're hoarding them all themselves, and everybody has it, and they still had that catastrophe. So, I mean, and China always wears masks. Just like South Korea.
Well, there's a lot of different things going on here. First of all, the outbreak happened in China. So the fact that trying to contain it there would have been a different story. They have all kinds of other problems in China. And and comparing China to South Korea that doesn't make any sense to me, because South Korea is so much smaller. They got it later, whatever. I think the U.S.
That's what I'm saying. You can't say masks are the thing that stops
no one
South
is.
Korea.
You still need to wash your hands. You still need to do everything else. It's not one or the other.
Yeah, but it does feel a little bit. It feels shitty when you're not given all the information.
They're undermining their own credibility, and now everyone's going to look at the WHO like it's a big conspiracy. It's like,
and the CDC.
Well, no, not everybody. You, you and the people who listen to you.
No,
come on, not everybody. No, like most people aren't conspiracy people.
No,
okay?
That's not that you like that thing.
The
that
majority
I posted
of people
week.
are not conspiracy people. I hate to break it to you guys.
Well, unfortunately, the majority of people in this country probably aren't going to listen to authority anyway. I mean, the people that are out still at social gatherings and going to parties and stuff like that.
That's not the majority, though. That's a minority.
Of people, though. It's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who don't get their information.
It's probably less than 1% of our population that's doing this.
It's enough to cause a problem.
Yes. But that's not the majority. That's the danger of this virus, is that 1% of the population can kill 10% of the population with their stupidity. But those people aren't going to listen to WHO anyway. Even if WHO said wear masks, they're not going to listen to
stupidity.
it. I mean,
it's not their stupidity, though. It's their distrust in authority. It's not even their stupidity.
It doesn't matter, though, because CDC and WHO for the longest time are like, this is serious, this is serious, this is serious. And Fox News and Trump were like, fuck you, this is a liberal conspiracy.
Well, the CDC screwed it
up those people,
early on. That's a different story.
Those people weren't going to listen anyway. Like that's my reasoning.
Of course, they weren't going to listen, because their authority is not the same authority as the WHO and the CDC or anything like that. So
exactly.
There are people in this world that are very difficult to communicate with, and it's not necessarily their fault. Actually, that's the way I see it. But that's a different conversation, really.
I mean, does Germany have a lot of masks?
They got stolen by the U.S. last I heard. Did you see that story?
So Germany's a country that doesn't have a lot of masks, and they're doing really well.
It's not about the mask. It's about
somebody. Well, it is about the masks, because that's what Mike's asking about.
No, but you
that's
can make your own
about.
masks. That's the thing. It's like you can make your own masks. It's easy. You can just get a cotton T-shirt or whatever.
But no. See, you're moving the goalposts. He said they lied about masks, and masks do make a difference. And I'm pointing out all these countries and states that we didn't have masks, and the difference is the consistency. The consistent point with all those states and countries is that they have strong social connections, and they listen to each other and they work together. So California, Germany, like the government says, "Hey guys, don't do this," and people listen to authority. They listen to the government because they know they voted for that person. They know that person's smart. And if the person says, "Hey, we need to shut down the state," or Germany says, "Hey, we need to shut down the country, no social gathering, blah blah," and that's proof that it worked. And so that's what I mean. Is just like we're seeing that even without the masks, washing your hands and social distancing can flatten the curve. It's possible.
So now
I think WHO just was dealing with the information they had and putting it out there as they got it.
So why now? Why now are they saying masks?
Because Americans are fucking stupid outside of California.
Oh man. Okay. So that's really the moral of the story in the end, is that
people are still going to church.
Man, those Oakland sideshows are still happening.
Oh, serious?
Yeah, apparently.
All right, Mike, next question.
So, okay,
now that Mike is an anarchist libertarian.
Yes. So let's get into personal property rights. Okay, so there was a story out of New York where an entrepreneur had bought a number of masks and other PPE equipment, and he was
quote unquote entrepreneur,
and he was selling them for a bit of a markup, 700%, and the state came in and they arrested him and they confiscated his property. Now we also
what did they arrest him for? That's my question.
Price gouging.
Price gouging and coughing on a federal and an FBI agent.
That's true, but I don't think they would confiscate his property based on that, right? I mean,
they arrested him for the coughing.
Right, exactly.
He claimed he had COVID-19 and then he coughed on them to try to keep them away from him.
That's so weird. You could be like a lethal weapon, like with a cough.
Yeah.
So anyways, the funny, the sort of the wrinkle in this whole story is that the New York government is at the same time that they're arresting this guy for 700% markups on this equipment, they're spending 1,500% on legal spot markets where all the states are competing against one another to buy up this equipment.
And the federal government.
Yeah, so it's like if you're big enough, you can do whatever you want. It's just business, right? But if you're an entrepreneur, they'll take your stuff and throw you in prison.
So what is the law regarding price gouging?
That's weird too.
First off, hold on. Let's clear up. I'm pretty sure I read he's not a legitimate entrepreneur, meaning he doesn't have a business license to sell medical grade goods.
Fair enough.
Which you have
to
be
headline
licensed.
You read or a tweet? This is
no. He's selling it out of his house and out of a gas station. He was selling out of a gas station in Jersey and out of his house in Brooklyn.
Well, how is that relevant?
He doesn't have a license to sell medical equipment.
But that's not why people are outraged.
These are just masks.
That's medical equipment.
If he was selling them at cost, he would still be breaking that law and no one would have a problem with that.
Right.
So it's really about this markup.
It's right about the price gouging. So where do we draw that line?
He would if he was hoarding a bunch of masks and selling them, there's no way to know that that's actually an N95 mask because he's not a certified representative.
But that's
and
not
you
what
have
he
no
got
idea
arrested
where he's
for.
getting it from.
He got arrested for price gouging, not selling.
We don't know that.
We don't know that.
We don't know that.
That's what the article said. So that's what we have to go off of.
Well, if you want to arrest somebody in this country, there's a million ways to arrest them. I'm sure you can find somebody doing something illegal. But was this guy actually breaking the law by marking up his mask? I mean, he was pulling a fucking pharma bro on us, but like.
So I was going back and forth with with Michael on this, and so what is price gouging? Is like 120%. Price gouging is 200%, 300%. Where is that threshold? Is it clearly defined? And I think what we kind of arrived at is that it's sort of like the smut laws of the 1950s where you know it when you see it, where, you know what I mean? Like they can't really define that per se, but.
See, I actually have an evolution on that.
Okay.
I evolved from that. My logic is you have a range of like 10 to 20% up or down based on the market, based on how much you're paying people, your cost to produce, all these things. It's constantly evolving because especially with N95, you're using these, not minerals, the stuff that's in phones that China makes that is very hard to, it's these kind of minerals that they
space-aged material.
And so that's how they make the N95 mask, and so that the prices can constantly be fluctuating based on the needs and necessity and cost of labor and this and that, and so I feel like the market kind of sets that rate, and it's constantly evolving based on those things. But when all of a sudden the market doesn't really change, it's just a matter of need, and somebody hoards a bunch, buys it, and then turns around, buys it for the sole purpose of then selling it for a higher cost, that's against the law.
Is it?
Now, what if...
Well, because...
Yeah. What if he's
not using it?
What if he wasn't hoarded? What if he just happened to have a warehouse full of this stuff prior to this whole epidemic? Like, is there a difference there? Or is it the fact that he ran out and bought it up?
But before we go to that question, I still don't know where you can draw this line because I feel like, at least in this country, it's almost like we're raised to do what this guy did. I mean, like supply and demand, go get what people want. He was only doing what he was basically taught to do to make money in business, basically. And that's probably what every
it's been against the law for 100 years.
What, price gouging, but not but not knowing where you cross the line. So gouge away all you want with like Lego toys, but then as soon as it comes to something like pharmaceuticals, then you cross a line.
So yeah,
okay.
No, I think like, so me and Mike kind of agreed that once the FBI starts to get involved, once there's a need, so if there was a need for Legos and people were like, hey, this fucking asshole is going out and buying every single one and charging 1,000 times, because you want to know what? Lego would turn around and be like, I need you to arrest that guy. Because that's bad for Lego.
I disagree here. I think with something that's like a life-saving equipment, that's one thing. Legos, no, I wouldn't. I think you should be allowed to price gouge all you want. It's not going to hurt anyone if that happens, right? But
it's going to hurt Lego.
So is there a law? There is a law,
but that's a different law. If I don't know what.
No, I mean that's price gouging. That's Lego who employs thousands of people, tens of thousands of people around the world, doesn't want their brand being hurt and their ability to sell their goods.
But they don't make the laws though, just because that's not in their interest. Like, is there actually a law that says if you're charging $1 million for some Legos, like, that's against the law?
No.
I don't think there is.
Yeah.
I don't know that
there's price gouging is against the law in like 34 states or something like that.
Well,
in New York's price gouging doesn't affect the government. That's why why they can't stop it.
Somebody look up the price
thing from
gouging
happening.
legislation, please. And I want to know what.
Well, there is no. It's state by state.
It's okay, but there is some legislation that's called price gouging, and there is a line that you can draw, and that line includes Legos. Like that's true.
Personally, I would take it to mean just essential equipment, like life-saving stuff.
Well, that's what I personally would do too. But it's not about what we personally think. It's about like what the law actually is, and that's the important thing. And I mean, we got to figure that out if we're gonna like. I think that needs to be a law. Like, you shouldn't. But here's the thing: it can be a social thing. Like, if somebody is out hoarding all the medicine, then
we could just murder him.
We could just go with pitchforks and torches and take his medicine or whatever. That's probably what
kill
would
his
have
family.
happened. Yes, that's what would have happened in the past, or at least we would have forced that person somehow. And maybe we would force that person by sending the FBI to their house to having them take it. But, and this is probably what all the Bitcoiners were up in arms about, because it seems wrong for the state to just make that decision on their own quietly or whatever to decide where that line is drawn.
They don't. I mean,
they don't.
It's if it's the law,
but we don't know.
Well, the state of New York knows what the law is.
Bitcoiners aren't big on laws. If you didn't know,
we can look at the law. All you got to do is and the people who we elected are the ones who passed the law, so it's pretty much our law. But ultimately, anytime a Bitcoiner complains about the state stealing something, say the alternative is me coming with a baseball bat and killing your family in front of you and taking your goods from you, because that's what we used to do 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. Before the police were a serious force, before any of that happened, that's how we dealt with stuff. That's how we dealt with people like you who hoarded stuff that people needed to survive on a daily basis. We went in with a baseball bat or a gun and just shot you and took your stuff. Mm-hmm. So
be that's the alternative. The FBI is there. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. We have a police force in the FBI, so people don't do that anymore. So we don't have lynching. So we don't have mobs.
All right.
That's the whole point of that.
So that makes sense. It does seem a little bit like, when we encourage people to basically go out and we encourage people to go out and be capitalists in this country. Go out and, take advantage of as many people as you can. Hey, make that product worth as much as you can. Make it as scarce as possible. I think that's like kind of a sick thing that we do here, unfortunately.
Yeah, but price gouging and hoarding is never acceptable. That's never part of capitalism. People never say, hey, go out and buy all the milk and then resell it. We actually have laws against reselling. You can't resell stuff.
There's a lot of stores on
Amazon.
But
that's, milk is different. Exactly. Milk is different than Kanye West runners, right? Like, what does he charge for those things, right? They're like $10,000-$20,000, right?
He's gouging people.
Right. But so I would not make a law to prevent him from doing that. But,
we don't actually have laws that say you can't buy tennis shoes and resell them. We actually don't have laws. And that's why, like Ticketmaster, had to start enacting like 5 tickets per person because these side companies would buy up all the tickets and then sell them later on for twice as much. And Pearl Jam stopped using Ticketmaster for that reason.
I don't feel like that's an area for the state. If you can't go see Pearl Jam,
it's not. But it's not though. That's what I'm saying. It's not a law.
Right.
Like Ticketmaster tried to figure it out on their own. Pearl Jam tried to figure it out on their own. Like these people are trying to figure out ways to circumvent people from buying a ton of stuff and reselling it. There are certain things you can't legally resell.
Well, yeah.
Pearl Jam tickets is not one of them, apparently.
Kanye runners. It's a cure for coronavirus. We'll see. All you got to do is wear these special shoes. Oh, man, that's an idea. Anyway.
God.
Moving on.
All right, next question. Mike.
All right, let me look through these notes.
There actually may have been more to that.
I think we covered it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
To clear it up really fast, though, New York has a price gouging law.
Okay.
But it only works for the citizens of New York. It doesn't work for New York State, for the government.
What
so
is
the
rationale
government
there?
isn't protected by that.
It's ridiculous.
They just didn't think about it.
But
They
also
just
the
write it
fact,
in there.
but also the fact that they're competing against other states, it makes no sense.
No. The fact that they're competing against the government makes no
yeah.
sense. Our government is a complete disaster. Our government needs to be put up against a wall and shot at this point because they're literally causing the deaths of thousands of people because they're, having a bidding war against the states.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the only people that's going to help are the lefts are the blue states because the blue states have all the money. California, New York, Washington. I mean, these are the richest states. So I guess it's like Texas and Florida are probably the only 2 states who could actually compete in the bidding war. All the rest of the red states take more than they give to the U.S. government tax-wise, and so they just wouldn't have enough money to do it, and all their people are going to die. So you're not helping anybody. You're not helping any Republicans by doing that. You're only hurting Republicans. So it seems like a lose-lose thing for Trump, but he likes those kind of odds.
Well, he was trying to commandeer the 3M masks that were en route to Canada, and I think they even grabbed something like 1 million masks that were en route to Germany that they were sitting in like a Thailand warehouse. So it's crazy what's happening. Everyone for themselves now.
Yeah. Some of that was stuff that we normally donate to other countries during times of pandemic.
So it's rightfully ours.
Well, it is ours. It's ours, and we donate it to other countries. And then people were realizing, like, hey, we're having this massive shortage. Why are we sending PPE supplies to foreign countries when we don't even have enough for ourselves? And that's why they stopped doing it, which, it makes sense, but
not a good look.
Not a good look. And also, at the end of the day, like, unless you're going to stop anybody from those countries to come to our country, it's not going to help us in the long run anyway if they're all sick. And then,
so there's a critical component within the N95 masks. It's like a wood pulp derivative that's made in Canada. And this could start a whole trade war where, if they cut off the masks to Canada, we might retaliate by cutting off these, raw materials that are needed for the masks. So that could escalate as well. Who knows?
Space age material.
Good old Trump.
We got to figure out. Well, yeah. It seems a little surprising that there's only like one type of mask that, well, there's 2 types. There's N95s and N99s or something. And then there's a few different variations on them, but that's basically the thing that everyone thinks you need.
Just put a t-shirt on your face and that's good enough.
Yeah,
unless you're going to touch your face more, and then don't wear anything.
Don't listen to Mike. Do not listen to Mike.
That's the Surgeon General. That's a Surgeon General. I saw the
Surgeon General says, put a t-shirt over your head. Just put your underwear on top of your head, and you'll be fine. Everybody has to wear clean underwear all the time. Wear it on the outside of your pants.
I know this is going to sound silly, but what if we all wore like astronaut helmets?
I was going to say, what about like snorkel gear, just like all the time?
So they had nurses talk about this, and they said that's really good until they sneeze, and then you don't have access to be able to put your hand in there and clean it, and so you've got this snot all over.
I mean, that's a minor problem. We could all go back to work. The economy could start up again. We just all wear astronaut outfits to work.
We just all wear coronavirus suits. I've been building my own coronavirus suit out of snorkel gear and space blankets and those slinky eyeball things. Just nice. For the hell of it.
Yeah.
I mean, we do need a coronavirus proof suit. It's like something that is like not too like cumbersome to wear. I've seen pictures of people in hospitals that are really like improvising on the masks that they're wearing. You know, like, oh, did you see what was it, Richard Hart wearing like a squash helmet like on his live stream?
Oh yeah,
that was pretty darn good. He's wearing a medical mask and a squash helmet. And not only that, but teaching people how to wear a squash helmet to protect them from coronavirus, I think is awesome.
I've never seen a squash helmet, and I got to look it up.
Hex is up like 800%. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, whoa. Well, hello, Mr. Hex. I guess we're all going to be wearing squash helmets soon, too. That was actually a pretty funny live stream. I didn't really care to tune into any more Richard Hart live streams, but he literally went on for like 2 hours and just screamed at his followers about how dumb they are.
So when I do a Google search for squash helmet and images, it's just a bunch of people wearing pumpkins on their heads.
Oh, that's a good idea too. Yeah, just wear a pumpkin on your head, protect you from the virus. Anything really. T-shirt, squash helmet, space helmet, motorcycle helmet, slinky eyeballs.
So, do we want to cover the mining death spiral?
Okay, so there are still some. Well, okay.
Go ahead.
Is the halvening priced in? Is it? There are still some people that believe that. I don't know if this is just something I see on Twitter, but some people say, "Oh, well, the halvening is in like a month. Maybe that will still save Bitcoin."
Well, even if it is priced in at this point, like it's okay. We'll double to 12,000. Like it's still now it's kind of meh because we've fallen so far, you know.
Yeah.
But,
so what happened when Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash had their halvening?
Bitcoin Cash hasn't had it yet, but it's coming up soon. A little sooner than
sure?
Yeah, because
does it happen at the same time as BTC?
No, because they after the fork, they were finding blocks a lot quicker because of their difficulty algorithm. It was a little different, and so they're a little further ahead, and so they will have their halvening a little sooner than BTC. Litecoin did have it last year, and price went down. It did, but the stock to flow guys will tell you, well, this is a unique thing for Bitcoin BTC, right? You can't really apply it to other cryptos.
So what happened recently with BCH where the rewards for miners wasn't worth it, and so they all started moving over to BSV?
Well, they flip back and forth, right? So the miners will go with whatever's most profitable at any given time, and their software will allow them to just flip back and forth, block to block, basically.
Yeah, but something happened in the last month or month.
Well,
they've been
debating. They've been debating doing like a dev tax, right, where they would divert some of the block reward directly into like an account controlled by like the core devs, right? And that created a lot of controversy. There's no community consensus on this, and but it's also hard coded in. There's a hard fork in May, so we'll see what happens there. Who knows?
Okay, I need to find this because I want to figure out what exactly happened.
Well, I mean, the price probably went down because of that, because it was a very unpopular thing, but. And maybe that a lot of miners maybe miners moved over to BSV because it became more profitable at that point.
I don't think price has anything to do with any of this shit. Personally, I think price is just
what?
No, I think that price does whatever price wants to do. It's the honey badger thing. It's like
that is crazy talk.
A few whales decide what's going to happen, and that's about it.
So you don't think miners come and go based on price?
They must, because they have real costs.
I mean, that's
I think they do. I mean, yes, but
that's capitalism. The miners in the space are pure capitalists in that sense of like they have to go where the money's going to be the best.
Totally. But is that going to look like, is that going to look like price going up on the charts? It's like chicken or the egg type of thing. And I don't know what's going to cause that spike or that drop or whatever.
Well, it wouldn't be on the miners' end. That's sort of the labor theory of value. Like, basically, the miners have to produce blocks that the market wants to accept.
Mm-hmm.
So
the market needs to go in that direction in the first place.
I mean, if the price keeps trending down, what's going to happen is miners will fall off the network, and it'll get more difficult to find a block until the next difficulty readjustment in 2016 blocks later. So the difficulty will decrease, and it'll reach another equilibrium. What we were talking about earlier a little while ago was, can this lead to like a mining death spiral, right? So if a lot of miners drop off all at once, the finding blocks becomes increasingly more difficult. So it might be 2 hours or 10 hours between blocks, and you got to get to the next readjustment, which is, it could be 2016 blocks away. So you're in this position where, it's endless, where normally it's 2 weeks, the 2016 blocks, but if they take 10 hours to be found, then it could be an endless amount of time. And that's kind of this mining death spiral where the network kind of grinds to a halt without some sort of intervention that would, on BTC, would require a hard fork, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, Craig Wright says that there is some sort of flaw in Bitcoin that's going to be, we're all going to know about.
Well, he announced that over a year ago, and it was supposed to happen in January, and nothing happened. Right?
I thought he just said early in 2020. I'm bringing it up more as a joke than anything, but but I mean, like,
conspiracy theory.
If we do get a death spiral, I mean, God, those guys are going to be like, see.
Yeah, it's unprecedented. It hasn't happened. It hasn't happened previously, but we're in a very different situation right now with this. The price is down. Plus, like, some mining farms have dropped off, not because of the price necessarily, but because of the pandemic, right? Like, they were physically closed. So that's never been factored in, right?
I don't even believe that. I believe that price fell because people just capitulated, not because of a virus.
Well, no, I mean the virus. I mean, no, I don't mean from the price side. I mean from the mining end, where
not because they actually got the virus and they sold.
No, I don't think that they were connected really at all. Personally, I just don't. That's not what I believe. Even though it lined up perfectly with the stock market, I think the stock market fell because people sold their stock because they were waiting to sell their stock.
Well, last year
coronavirus is just a nice little excuse.
Yeah. Last year it was something like 200 CEOs, thousands resigned, like, out of nowhere. They knew something was,
we knew the recession was coming. That's what I'm saying. That's what I keep telling people. So, like, we had the H1N1 pandemic, 10 years ago, didn't affect the stock market at all.
No.
Didn't even register on it compared to what happened.
No, it was just a catalyst. It was like, oh, here's our perfect opportunity to sell all our stocks.
Exactly.
Politicians are doing the same thing. So Bitcoin, it's like, oh, this is another just perfect opportunity for us to cash in, and then buy back in at 3,800, or whatever. That's what I think. But yeah, I don't know. I wonder how much something like, but I do believe that minor capitulation could be the end of Bitcoin. It wouldn't be the end. It would mean that we could end up below $1,000 Bitcoin again. Which,
I mean, price will do
this year.
This year, yeah. I mean, if there's minor capitulation, if miners turn off their machines because it's not worth it for them to buy Bitcoin.
I think Mike in space would flip on his laptop and mine.
What would happen is everyone would go against their beliefs, and they would just hard fork. It was as simple as that. They would just hard fork it, even though they're saying that it would never happen, and they would hard fork it.
I don't trust BTC people at all. They've proven time and again to only have their own interests at heart, not the best interests of Bitcoin itself.
I mean, but you trust them enough to buy BTC because
no, I don't. I trade BTC. There's a difference.
And so, okay. So you think
I'm not a long-term holder.
You think that BTC developers would intervene if there was a miner capitulation event? If it looked like it was going to be unprofitable to mine Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, if the alternative is the price goes to zero and the network grinds to a halt, yeah, absolutely they would intervene.
Yeah. I mean, we've already seen that they do stuff without letting anybody know, without trust, and it's all based on trust. So when they had that bug that allowed unlimited printing of Bitcoin,
the CVE,
the one guy found it, told everybody that they have to update to this new software, and wouldn't tell them why. Nobody knew why. He just said, "You have to trust me," and they all did it.
Well, they gave a different reason. They gave a different reason. They said that it would knock nodes, like nodes were getting reset, and they didn't really reveal the fact that it was printing money, basically. So they gave a different reason why it needed to be fixed.
Okay. So, I mean, that's pretty shady. Like, and it's this whole thing of like Mike, like we talked about earlier, is like with the whole mask thing. I mean, this is a perfect example of the masks. In Mike's mind, I don't think that who knew, but in Mike's mind, he's saying that who knew that masks help people, but it was in the better good in their mind to not have people wear them and give them to the hospitals instead. See, so like that's what Bitcoin did. That's what BTC did.
They just thought you're too
noble lie.
We're smarter than you, so trust us. And
no, I think that the Bitcoin people thought that. I mean, I can't say, obviously, I don't know what's in their head, but I'm going to assume that they thought that if they released that knowledge, that people would start printing their own Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think it was probably a low probability that anyone would exploit that, but the mere fact that that kind of exploit is out in the wild would have had a big impact on the price. So they want to fix it first before revealing why it was so bad.
Yeah. Which is what businesses do, like Google and Apple and with their software when they have massive bugs in Microsoft, because they don't want to affect the stock price. So they try to fix it behind closed doors. They don't acknowledge so Apple's notorious for there being, a million people complaining about a yellow tinted screen on a laptop, and Apple's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're just making it up. We're not acknowledging that it actually exists. And then a month and a half later, they come up with a fix for it. Yeah. Say, here's the fix for that thing that we said wasn't really true. So because they don't want to affect their stock price. If they say, hey, all these screens are yellow and we have no solution for it, it's going to be like 3 months. Boom, stock tanks.
What a weird house of cards we live in, where like we have to whisper about things to avoid like a windfall, black swan event that could happen just
death spirals,
hurricanes. Well, I mean, yeah. All right. So halvening, it looks like miners are going to not get paid as much. So they're going to have to. Hopefully, there's enough miners that can mine profitably, and if not, there's enough that want to mine unprofitably. That doesn't sound like it makes any sense at all.
If the miners taper off gradually, then the difficulty will readjust gradually, and it's not a problem. The problem with the mining death spiral is if a lot drop off all at once.
Now, what if something happens? What if something happens between now and then, which requires people to find another place to put their money, like I don't know, a run on the banks or something like that,
or Nano.
Well, you think they?
Nano. Well, it's going up against Bitcoin right now. I have no idea why. I looked at it. I was like, what the fuck?
Get your Nano, everybody. Make sure you get some of that juicy Nano.
Nano's doubled. Nano's more than doubled since the bottom, and Bitcoin's only gone back up like.
So people know about it, is what you're saying.
I
People are
guess
buying
so.
this.
I can't. I'm surprised.
Well, I mean,
I need to go out and buy some. I don't have any.
Our economy, the world economy, is in a precarious place right now, where nobody knows what's going to happen, and people probably rightfully freaked out about their money. Like, there are probably people that are hoarding cash right now and stuffing it in a mattress or something. Even though that sounds ridiculous, why would you want dirty cash in a time where everything is infected? But it's beautifully ironic that the halvening, which could be catastrophic for Bitcoin, is coming at a time when the economy is in the middle of a catastrophe.
I know. That's so crazy.
So, man, Craig, right, what are you up to?
The funny thing about the stock to flow model is that they're not saying that the price will double the moment after the halvening. They give it up to like 18 months. And when you think about it, 18 months, that's almost the halfway point to the next halvening. So it's so ridiculous. Like,
what stock to flow? Is there an easy way to describe what stock to flow means? Because I don't know what it means.
I mean,
maybe not. Let's not even go there if you guys don't want to. Okay, it's just a bunch of. To me, it's a bunch of people that sound like they're coming up with a plan for Bitcoin or an excuse for why it's going to do a certain thing, which we've known that just doesn't work for Bitcoin ever.
So here's how I kind of see it. So supply is getting cut in half, and so the assumption is if demand just stays static, price will go up, right? Because you have more demand versus the supply. But the thing with Bitcoin, it's not like oil or something where the demand, it can be counted upon, right? A lot of it has to do with sentiment, right? So,
there's not an actual need for it.
Exactly.
It's all emotional.
So it's like saying supply and demand, physical. But there's really no demand for Bitcoin.
It's not like food where you got to eat. You can buy.
It's like comic books. It goes back to my analogy of comic books.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when I'm starving, do I really need my comic books? No, I'm going to sell the fucking shit out of all of them.
So, but how is stock to flow different than just supply and demand? I mean, what's the theory behind it?
Well, the assumption behind it is that demand will stay static, right? At the very least. So supply gets cut in half, but your demand is staying the same, right? People these hodlers are still buying the same amount of Bitcoin every month, right? So they're paying twice as much because there's less supply. But it doesn't account for things like sentiment and the fact that, even a hodler might say, you know what, I'm going to cut down on the amount of Bitcoin I'm buying next month because I have other concerns or the price, I see the price going down. That aspect of it isn't really captured in the theory, at least from what I see.
Yeah. I mean, it's this idea of, it's more or less people say it like the halvening thing. Like it's the idea of if it's the reason why economics isn't a science, because it's ridiculous, because it's based on human emotion, and you can't ever have a control group when you're dealing with humans in that sense, because humans are all irrational and we all think differently and we all respond differently. And so how can you create some kind of quote unquote theory around something that is physically impossible for you to prove? And so it's like a nice idea. Stock to flow is a nice idea, just like communism and capitalism.
Well, it sounds like, I don't know. It sounds like we're back to the same old, we have no idea what the fuck Bitcoin is going to do. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what Bitcoin does during a recession or a depression, because it's never seen that before. And I think it's funny that so many technical analysts are like look at the 10-year history of Bitcoin. See, back in 2012 it did this, and in 2014 it did this, and it's like, I don't know.
Well, even with the halvening, it's like you have 2 data points. You're extrapolating based on 2 data points. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's funny. And not even talking about what technically it does, which is make it harder to have a Bitcoin. Make it harder to have Bitcoin in our lives. Well, it was a good show. Anything else we want to talk about?
I think we covered it.
Yeah.
Anything else burning a hole in your head, Mike?
Anything else you want to get all MAGA about? Get off my lawn.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about Trump, but he's very entertaining. I enjoy watching him from afar.
Michael loves Trump.
Love him.
It's great. Well, see, it's great watching it from afar, right? Like it's your president, so I can kind of enjoy it.
Yeah,
it's great, except for all like the people that like are wrongfully imprisoned and starving,
and dying,
and he's concerned about his ratings.
Yeah. Oh my god.
It's pathetic, actually. It's very yeah. I don't even know where to start.
Let's just end it on that.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. It's been a great show. Thanks, Mike in Space.
Thank you for having me on. Stay safe, guys.
When's your next show? When's your next episode?
You know what? I had something planned for the Happening, but it was hard getting a guest to agree on it. So I don't know if it's going to happen now, especially with the pandemic, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably hard. It's probably hard to get you into a car it's probably hard to get guests to. I don't know. Is it hard?
Hey, there's two guys talking to you right now who would totally do it.
Well, yeah, but no, I'm looking forward to it. I think you should definitely keep doing it. We're gonna need you in the future, Mike.
We all need to laugh again. Yes.
Yes.
We need to feel some.
That Paul one is so funny. Oh my god! Thank you for linking that. That was hysterical.
Totally.
I got to listen to the Paul episode. I've kind of I haven't listened to any podcasts lately just because I don't have a commute anymore. But yeah, definitely the last couple episodes that I see in my queue from your podcast look interesting. I'm definitely going to start with the Paul episode though.
Paul one's good.
We did actually. So yeah, we had him on twice. The first time the recording just didn't work out, but it was probably for the better because we spent the entire episode with me just asking what Austrian economics was over and over and over again. That was the entire episode.
I'm just rolling my eyes over here. I was like, what?
And then Paul is just name dropping philosophers basically the entire time. Just like constantly like naming a bunch of philosophers. I'm like, I don't know any of those guys. Still don't know exactly what it means, but I'm reading a book on it. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the Keyword Crypto podcast. We are at Keyword Crypto on Twitter. Mike in Space is at Mike in Space on Twitter, and check out his YouTube show, Bitcoin Car Talk. Visit our Patreon page if you'd like to help contribute to the show and make it happen. We don't have any official sponsors. We rely on the listeners in order to make the show happen. Get in touch with us on Twitter if you have ideas for the show, guests that you want us to talk to, or if you want to come on. That's about it. Have a good day, everybody.